Raindrops hit the metal walls of the Galactic Creature Sanctuary like tiny hammers. Alex Rivera pulled his coat tighter as he walked through the long hallways. Each door he passed had a small window. Behind those windows lived creatures from across the galaxy. Some had wings, others had too many eyes, and a few looked almost like Earth animals but with strange colors. Alex had worked at this place for 8 years now. He helped sick and hurt alien creatures get better. Most days were good. He would feed the small furry ones from Centauri, help the crystal beings from the Vega system grow new limbs, or teach the smart bird-like creatures from Tau Ceti how to fly again after their wings healed. But today felt different. Today his boss had given him a new assignment. She wanted him to check on something in the deep levels. The levels where they kept the creatures that nobody wanted to visit anymore. The elevator took forever to reach level 7. When the doors opened, the air felt heavy and cold. The lights here were dimmer too. Alex read the note his boss had given him again. Room 4471. Draconic species. Brought in 6 months ago. Not eating. Not moving. Staff recommends termination. Alex had heard about draconics before. They were huge. Creatures that looked like the dragons from old Earth stories. But these were real and they were smart. Very smart. Most people feared them because draconics were strong and could live for thousands of years. Wars had been fought against them. Whole planets had been burned by their kind. He found room 4471 at the end of a dark hallway. The door was bigger than all the others. Alex pressed his face against the window and looked inside. At first he saw nothing but shadows. Then his eyes got used to the darkness. In the far corner of the huge room lay something that took his breath away. It was a dragon, but not like the ones in old Earth pictures. This one looked sick and sad. His scales were gray like old metal. His head rested on the floor and his eyes were closed. Alex could see the creature breathing, but just barely. The file said his name was Specimen 4471. No real name, just a number. Alex hated that. Every creature deserved a real name. He opened the door and stepped inside. The room was enormous, big, enough for a creature that should have been 50 feet long. But this dragon was much smaller, maybe 20 feet from nose to tail. Still huge compared to Alex, but small for his kind. Alex walked closer, making sure his footsteps were soft. He did not want to scare the dragon. As he got near, he could see that the dragon's scales had once been beautiful. Under all that gray, he could see hints of bronze and gold. This creature had been magnificent once. "Hello there," Alex said quietly. The dragon did not move, not even a twitch. "My name is Alex. I am here to help you." Still nothing. Alex sat, down on the floor, keeping some distance between them. He had learned long ago that sitting made him look less threatening to hurt animals. "I know you probably do not want help right now," Alex continued, "but I am not going anywhere." For the next hour, Alex just sat there. He talked about his day, about the other creatures in the sanctuary, about anything that came to mind. The dragon never moved. When Alex finally left, he made a promise to himself. He would come back tomorrow, and the day after that, and every day until this creature got better, or he did not want to think about the other option. That night, Alex went to the sanctuary's library. He read everything he could find about draconics. Most of it was scary stories about wars and burned cities. But buried in the old research papers, he found something different. Draconics were not just smart. They were brilliant. They had built cities among the stars long before humans learned to fly. They were artists and scientists and philosophers. They lived in family groups called clutches and were very loyal to each other. When one of them died, the others would mourn for years. Alex also learned something else. Draconics could share emotions with each other through their minds. They did not just talk with words. They talked with feelings. No wonder this dragon seemed so alone. He had lost his ability to connect with others of his kind. The next morning, Alex went straight to room 4471. The dragon was in exactly the same position as before. Alex sat down in the same spot and started talking again. "I read about your people last night," Alex said. "I learned that you are much more than what most people think." I am sorry for what happened to your family. This time Alex thought he saw one of the dragon's eyes open just a little. It might have been his imagination, but it gave him hope. Every day for 2 weeks, Alex came to room 4471. Every day he sat on the floor and talked. He told the dragon about Earth, about the mountains and oceans and forests. He talked about his own family, about how he became a doctor for alien creatures, about his favorite foods and movies. Slowly, very slowly, the dragon began to respond. First, it was just a slight movement of his head when Alex arrived. Then, a soft rumbling sound that might have been acknowledgement. After 10 days, the dragon opened his eyes and looked directly at Alex. There you are. Alex whispered. I have been waiting to meet you. The dragon's eyes were not just eyes. They were ancient and deep and full of sadness. But now, Alex could see something else in them. Curiosity. Alex started bringing small gifts. A piece of quartz crystal from Earth, a holographic image of the aurora borealis, a recording of whale songs from the Pacific Ocean. Each gift seemed to interest the dragon a little more. One day, Alex brought a plate of food, not the nutrition paste that the other staff had been leaving. Real food. Fruits from a dozen different worlds prepared the way the research papers said draconics liked them. For the first time in months, the dragon lifted his head and ate. That night, Alex made another decision. This dragon needed more than food and gifts. He needed a friend, and Alex was going to figure out how to become that friend no matter what it took. The workshop smelled like burned metal and old coffee. Alex had been working here for 3 nights in a row, trying to build something that had never been built before. Around him, pieces of computers and brain-scanning equipment lay scattered across every table. His eyes hurt from staring at tiny wires and circuit boards. Alex was trying to create a way to talk with the dragon, not with words but with thoughts and feelings. The research papers said draconics shared emotions through their minds. If Alex could build a machine to translate those emotions, maybe he could finally understand what the dragon was trying to tell him. The problem was that nobody had ever tried this before. Human technology was good at reading brainwaves and thoughts, but emotions were different. Emotions were deeper and more complex. Alex was basically guessing and hoping he would get lucky. On the 4th night, he finally had something that looked like it might work. It was a headset with dozens of small sensors and a computer processor that could analyze emotional patterns. Alex had programmed it to recognize basic feelings like sadness, fear, anger, and hope. He was scared to test it. What if it hurt the dragon? What if it did not work at all? What if it worked too well and Alex experienced emotions that were too powerful for a human mind to handle? But he had to try. The dragon was getting stronger every day. His scales were starting to show, more bronze and gold. He was eating regularly now. But Alex could tell he was still deeply sad. The dragon needed more than food and gifts. He needed understanding. The next morning, Alex brought the headset to room 4471. The dragon was awake, sitting in the middle of the room instead of lying in the corner. This was progress. When Alex entered, the dragon turned his massive head to look at him. I made something for us, Alex said, holding up the headset. It might help us understand each other better, but I need you to trust me. The dragon stared at the strange device. Alex could see intelligence in those ancient eyes. The dragon was thinking about this, weighing the risks. Alex put the headset on his own head first. The sensors felt cold against his skin. He turned on the machine and immediately felt a tingling sensation in his brain. The computer screen showed his own emotions as colored waves. Blue for calm, red for nervous, green for hopeful. Then Alex slowly approached the dragon. He had to get close enough for the sensors to pick up the dragon's emotional signals. Each step felt dangerous. Even a friendly dragon could accidentally hurt a human just by moving too fast. But the dragon stayed perfectly still. When Alex was close enough to touch the dragon's scales, something amazing happened. The computer screen exploded with color. Waves of emotion hit Alex like a giant wave hits a beach. At first it was overwhelming. Sadness deeper than any ocean. Loneliness that stretched across centuries. pain from losses that Alex could not even imagine. But then, underneath all of that darkness, Alex felt something else, curiosity about this small creature who kept visiting, gratitude for the gifts and food, and something that might have been the beginning of friendship. The dragon felt Alex's emotions too. Alex could sense the dragon's surprise at discovering that this human genuinely cared about him. No fear, no desire to use him for profit or fame. Just simple, honest concern. They stayed connected like this for several minutes, both of them learning about each other in ways that words could never allow. When Alex finally stepped back and removed the headset, both he and the dragon were exhausted, but they were also changed. "You have a name, don't you?" Alex asked. "A real name that your family gave you." The dragon made a sound that was part rumble, part song. It was beautiful and sad at the same time. Alex could not pronounce it, but he understood what it meant. The dragon was telling him his true name for the first time in months. "I cannot say that with my mouth," Alex admitted. "But I can call you Ember, like the glowing coals that remain after a fire, because that is what you are. You are what remains, after everything burned away. And embers can start new fires if they are cared for properly." The dragon considered this. Then he lowered his great head until it was level with Alex. This was a gesture of acceptance. Ember liked his new human name. Over the next few weeks, Alex visited Ember every day with the emotional translator. Each conversation taught them more about each other. Alex learned that Ember was not just intelligent. He was ancient and wise. He had seen the rise and fall of civilizations. He had witnessed the birth of stars and the death of planets. Ember learned that humans were more than the violent, greedy creatures that most other species believed them to be. Through Alex, he discovered that humans could be kind and loyal and willing to sacrifice for others. Alex was proof that humans could love creatures that were different from themselves. During one of their conversations, Ember shared a memory that changed everything. Alex saw through Ember's eyes the day his clutch died. It was not an accident like the official report claimed. Ships with military markings had attacked the mining colony where Ember's family lived. The attack was planned and deliberate. Someone had wanted Ember's family dead. But why? Ember showed Alex another memory. His grandmother, the eldest of their clutch, passing down knowledge that had been preserved for thousands of years. Ember was not just any draconic. He was a memory keeper. His mind contained the history, culture, and ancient secrets of his entire species. The attackers had not wanted the mining rights to that planet. They had wanted to silence Ember and his family forever. They wanted to erase the knowledge that Ember carried in his genetic memory. "You are not safe here," Alex realized. "If they find out you are still alive, they will come for you." Ember's emotions confirmed Alex's fears. The dragon had been hiding his true identity, hoping that if he seemed broken and worthless, no one would look too closely at who he really was. But now Alex knew the truth. His friend was not just a sad dragon who needed help. Ember was a living library containing secrets that could change the galaxy. And there were people out there who would kill to keep those secrets buried. That night, Alex made a decision that would change both of their lives forever. He was not going to let anyone hurt Ember, even if it meant giving up everything he had worked for, even if it meant becoming a criminal, even if it meant running away to the farthest edges of space. Alex would protect his friend. Alarms screamed through the sanctuary at 3 a.m. Red lights flashed in every hallway as emergency systems activated. Alex jumped out of his bed in the staff quarters and ran toward the main computer terminal. Something was very wrong. The security screens showed ships approaching the station. Big ships with dark hulls and no identification markings. They moved like military vessels, fast and precise. As Alex watched, smaller ships detached from the main fleet and headed straight for the sanctuary's docking bays. Alex's blood went cold. These were not inspectors or supply ships. These were raiders. And he had a terrible feeling he knew what they were looking for. He ran through the corridors toward level 7, dodging other staff members who were trying to figure out what was happening. The elevator seemed to take forever. When Alex finally reached room 4471, He found Ember awake and agitated. The dragon's scales were shifting colors, turning darker as stress hormones flooded his system. "They found us," Alex said, breathing hard from his run. "We have to get you out of here." Ember's emotions crashed into Alex's mind without the need for the translation device. Fear, anger, and a deep sadness that this day had finally come. But underneath those feelings, Alex sensed something else. Determination. "You want to fight them," Alex realized. Ember showed Alex a mental image. 12 worlds hidden throughout the galaxy. Each world contained vast libraries of knowledge that the Draconics had preserved for thousands of years. Science that could cure diseases. Technology that could end wars. Art and philosophy that could bring peace between species. The people attacking the station belonged to something called the Hegemony. They were a group of worlds that wanted to control the galaxy through fear and military power. They saw the Draconic archives as a threat because knowledge meant freedom. If other species learned what the Memory Keepers knew, they might be able to resist the Hegemony's control. So the Hegemony had decided that all Memory Keepers had to die. The sound of boots in the hallway interrupted Alex's thoughts. The raiders had reached level 7. Alex could hear them kicking down doors and searching rooms. They would reach room 4471 in minutes. "The maintenance shafts," Alex whispered. "They are big enough for you if you can make yourself smaller." Ember could compress his body somewhat, the way some earth snakes could flatten themselves to squeeze through tight spaces. It would be uncomfortable, but possible. Alex helped Ember navigate through the sanctuary's hidden passages. They crawled through tunnels meant for repair robots and cleaning equipment. Behind them, they could hear the raiders growing frustrated as they found empty room after empty room. They reached the hangar bay where Alex's research ship was docked. It was a small vessel, designed for short trips to collect samples from nearby planets. It was not meant for long journeys or combat, but it was fast and hard to track. "Can you fit in there?" Alex asked, looking at his tiny ship. Ember showed him that Draconics could enter a kind of hibernation state that made them much smaller. It was not comfortable, but Memory Keepers had used this ability to hide from enemies for centuries. As Ember compressed himself into the ship's cargo hold, Alex fired up the engines. He had never stolen anything in his life, but he was about to steal a spaceship and become a fugitive. The thought terrified him. But losing Ember terrified him more. They escaped just as the raiders figured out where they had gone. Alex pushed the little ship as fast as it would go, diving into the asteroid field that surrounded the sanctuary. Behind them, bigger and more powerful ships gave chase. For 3 hours, Alex played a deadly game of hide-and-seek among the spinning rocks. His ship was too small to fight the raiders, but it was also too small for their sensors to track easily. Alex used every trick he had learned in his years of sample collecting, hiding behind asteroids and using the natural radiation from the space rocks to mask their energy signature. Finally, the raiders gave up and returned to their base. Alex and Ember were alone in the darkness of space. "What do we do now?" Alex asked his sleeping friend. Ember was deep in hibernation and could not answer. Alex spent the next few days studying the star charts and trying to figure out where to go. He could not return to human space. The Hegemony would be watching every port and station. He could not go to any of the major alien civilizations either. The Hegemony had allies everywhere, but Ember had shown him something during their mental connection, the location of the first archive world. It was hidden in a nebula that scrambled most sensor arrays. Ships could only find it if they knew exactly where to look. It took Alex 2 weeks to reach the nebula. His little ship was not designed for long journeys, and they were running low on food and fuel. But when they finally arrived at the coordinates, Ember had shared. Alex gasped at what he saw. The archive world was beautiful. It was a planet covered in crystal forests and silver cities. Even from space, Alex could see the elegant spires and domes that the Draconics had built. This was a world dedicated entirely to preserving knowledge. When they landed, Ember finally emerged from hibernation. His scales were brighter than Alex had ever seen them. Being near the archives seemed to give him strength. Together, they walked through libraries that stretched for miles. Crystal storage devices contained the wisdom of hundreds of species. Alex saw art from civilizations that had died out millions of years ago. He found scientific formulas that could solve problems that still plagued the galaxy. There were star maps showing safe routes through dangerous space, and historical records that revealed the true causes of ancient wars. "This is incredible," Alex whispered. "This knowledge could help everyone." But Ember showed him the problem. The hegemony was not just hunting memory keepers. They were also searching for the archive worlds. Once they found one, they would destroy it completely. All of this knowledge would be lost forever. "We cannot just hide here," Alex realized. "We have to share this information before they find us." Ember agreed, but he showed Alex how dangerous that would be. Sharing the archives would paint a target on both of them. The hegemony would never stop hunting them. They would spend the rest of their lives running from one hiding place to another. Alex thought about this for a long time. He could go back to his old life. He could claim that Ember had died during the raid on the sanctuary. He could return to his job and his comfortable routine and pretend none of this had ever happened. But when he looked at the vast libraries around him, and when he felt Ember's gratitude and friendship through their mental connection, Alex knew he could not abandon this responsibility. "We're going to need help," Alex said. "We cannot do this alone." Ember showed him something that gave Alex hope. There were other memory keepers scattered throughout the galaxy. Most of them were hiding, pretending to be ordinary members of their species. But if Alex and Ember could find them and wake them up, they might be able to save the archives before it was too late. Alex looked at his little research ship and thought about the massive task ahead of them. They were going to travel to dozens of worlds. They were going to awaken ancient dragons who had been sleeping for decades. They were going to challenge one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy. It should have been impossible. But Alex had learned something important during his time with Ember. Sometimes the most important things were also the most difficult things. And sometimes, if you cared enough about someone, you could find the strength to do impossible things. Space felt different when you were being hunted. Every star could hide an enemy ship. Every planet could be a trap. Alex had been flying for 3 months now, and he still jumped every time his sensors detected another vessel. Their ship was barely holding together. The little research vessel was not designed for the kind of journey they were on. Alex had to repair something new every day. The food processor had broken twice. The air recycling system made weird noises that worried him during the night. And they were running low on fuel again. But somehow, they kept going. Ember had grown stronger during their travels. His scales now shined with their full bronze and gold colors. His eyes were bright and alert. Most importantly, he had begun to remember things that had been locked away in his mind for years. Through their mental connection, Ember shared memories that belonged to other memory keepers. Knowledge passed down through generations. He showed Alex the locations of hidden draconics throughout the galaxy, and more importantly, he taught Alex how to recognize them. Memory keepers had been hiding among different species for decades. Some worked as historians or teachers. Others had taken jobs as mechanics or farmers trying to blend in with ordinary society. A few had even joined the crews of trading ships, using the constant travel to stay ahead of hegemony hunters. The first memory keeper they found was working as a librarian on a research station near the Rigel system. Her name was Ash, and she had been pretending to be a regular draconic scholar for 15 years. When Alex and Ember arrived at the station, she was so surprised to see another memory keeper that she almost gave herself away. "I thought I was the only one left," Ash whispered, when they met in secret. Her scales were gray from years of suppressing her true nature, but Alex could see hints of deep green underneath the dullness. Ember shared his memories with her, showing her the archive world and explaining their mission. As the knowledge flowed between them, Ash's scales began to change color. She was remembering who she really was. "The hegemony destroyed my clutch 8 years ago," Ash told them. "I have been afraid to be myself since then." "You do not have to be afraid anymore," Alex said. "We are building something new, a network of memory keepers who will preserve knowledge instead of hiding it." Ash agreed to join them, but she brought disturbing news. Hegemony agents had been asking questions at the research station. They were looking for humans who worked with draconics. Alex's escape from the sanctuary had not gone unnoticed. "They know about you," Ash warned Alex. "You are on their wanted lists now. They are calling you a terrorist and a species traitor." Alex felt a chill run down his spine. He had known this day would come, but hearing it confirmed was still frightening. He was no longer just helping Ember. He had become a target himself. Their second discovery came in the mining colonies of the Tau Ceti system. A memory keeper named Cole had been working as a deep space miner for 12 years. His job was perfect for staying hidden because miners worked alone for months at a time, and nobody asked questions about their past. But Cole brought more bad news. The hegemony was not just hunting individual memory keepers anymore. They were systematically investigating every draconic in the galaxy. Anyone who showed signs of unusual intelligence or ancient knowledge was being arrested and interrogated. "They are getting desperate," Cole explained as his black scales regained their natural shine. "Someone high up in their command structure knows about the archive worlds. They are running out of time, and they know it." Alex realized what this meant. The hegemony was planning something big. They were not content to hunt memory keepers one at a time anymore. They were preparing for a final assault that would eliminate all the remaining archives at once. As their small group grew, Alex learned more about the scope of their enemy. The hegemony was not just a military alliance. It was a philosophy that believed some species were naturally superior to others. They saw diversity as weakness and knowledge as a threat to their control. The hegemony's leaders believed that if they could control all access to advanced technology and historical records, they could remake the galaxy according to their vision. Species that submitted would be allowed to survive as servants. Species that resisted would be eliminated. Memory keepers represented everything the hegemony feared. They were proof that knowledge belonged to everyone, not just the powerful. They carried within their minds the wisdom of hundreds of different species, showing that cooperation was stronger than domination. Their third recruit was a memory keeper, named Flame, who had been hiding on an agricultural world, working as a crop specialist. She had been using her ancient knowledge of soil and plant genetics to help feed an entire planet. But she had to pretend that her innovations were just lucky guesses. "I have been watching worlds starve while I knew how to help them," Flame said, bitterly. "The hegemony's trade restrictions have made it illegal to share certain types of agricultural knowledge. They want to control who eats and who goes hungry." Each new memory keeper they awakened brought more pieces of the puzzle. Alex began to understand that their mission was bigger than just preserving draconic history. They were fighting for the right of all species to learn and grow and improve their lives. But the hegemony was getting closer to finding them. During their 4th month of travel, Alex's sensors detected pursuit ships 3 different times. Each time, they had to use dangerous maneuvers to escape. Once, they hid in the corona of a star, using the intense radiation to mask their heat signature while enemy ships searched for them just a few thousand miles away. Alex's piloting skills had improved dramatically during their journey. Ember's telepathic guidance helped him react faster than any human pilot could react alone. Together, they could navigate through asteroid fields at speeds that should have been impossible. They could hide in places where other ships could not follow. But Alex was getting tired. The constant stress of being hunted was wearing him down. He had lost weight and his hands shook sometimes when he thought no one was looking. Ember could feel his friend's exhaustion through their mental connection. During a rest stop at an abandoned space station, Ember showed Alex something that changed his perspective on their mission. Through the memories of the memory keepers they had awakened, Alex saw the true history of the galaxy. Thousands of years ago, hundreds of different species had worked together to explore the stars. They had shared knowledge freely, helping each other solve problems and overcome challenges. Wars were rare because most conflicts could be resolved through understanding and compromise. But then came the Great Forgetting, a series of disasters, wars, and plagues that wiped out entire civilizations. The species that survived became suspicious of each other. They stopped sharing knowledge and started hoarding it instead. Without cooperation, progress slowed and conflicts increased. The hegemony was both a cause and a result of this isolation. They gained power by convincing species to fear and mistrust each other. The more divided the galaxy became, the easier it was for the hegemony to control it. We are not just preserving the past, Alex realized. We are trying to rebuild the future. Ember confirmed this with a flood of warm emotions. Memory keepers were not just libraries. They were teachers and healers and bridge builders. Their purpose was to help species connect with each other again. Alex looked at their small group of awakened memory keepers and felt something he had not experienced in months. Hope. They were still being hunted. They were still outnumbered and outgunned. But they were no longer alone. And deep in his heart, Alex began to believe that they might actually have a chance to change everything. The final archive world was nothing like the others. Instead of crystal cities and peaceful libraries, Alex found himself looking at a planet that was ready for war. Defensive satellites orbited the world in complex patterns. Energy shields flickered around important installations. This was where the last memory keepers had decided to make their stand. Alex's little research ship was challenged by patrol vessels before they even entered the planet's atmosphere. Only Ember's ancient identification codes convinced the guards to let them land. After 7 months of running and hiding, they had finally reached the heart of memory keeper resistance. The leader of this world was an ancient draconic named Wisdom. She was enormous even by memory keeper standards, and her scales showed the deep purple color that came with extreme age. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of centuries. "Young Ember," Wisdom said, her mental voice touching both Alex and Ember simultaneously. "You have brought us quite a gift." Alex felt confused until he realized that Wisdom was talking about him. During their months together, Alex had become more than just Ember's friend and translator. His mind had been changed by their constant mental connection. He could now communicate telepathically with any memory keeper, and more importantly, he had become a bridge between species. "Humans are more adaptable than we realized," Wisdom explained. "Your brain has learned to process draconic thought patterns. You are proof that other species can be taught to share knowledge the way we do." Around the planet, Alex met others who had been working toward the same goal. There was a Centauri scientist named Swift who had bonded with a memory keeper named Storm. Together, they had developed new medical treatments that could save thousands of lives. There was a crystalline being from Vega named Bright, who worked with a memory keeper named Deep to create art that could be understood by any species. Most surprising of all was a group of humans who had escaped from hegemony-controlled worlds. They had been researchers and teachers who refused to accept the hegemony's restrictions on knowledge sharing. When they were marked for arrest, memory keepers had helped them escape. "We are not the only ones fighting this battle," Alex realized. "There are people from every species who want something better." But even as their alliance grew stronger, the hegemony was preparing its final assault. Intelligence reports showed massive fleets gathering at the edges of known space. The enemy had located several archive worlds and was planning to destroy them all simultaneously. "We cannot run anymore," Wisdom announced to the assembled rebels. "If we lose the archives, everything we have preserved will be lost forever. It is time to share our knowledge with the galaxy, whether the hegemony approves or not." The plan was ambitious and dangerous. Memory keepers throughout the galaxy would simultaneously release their genetic archives to every planet and space station they could reach. The information burst would be so massive and so widespread that no government or military force could stop all of it. But the plan required perfect coordination. Every memory keeper had to transmit their archives at exactly the same time, or the hegemony would have time to stop the ones who went later. Alex found himself at the center of the operation. His unique ability to communicate with memory keepers made him the perfect coordinator. While the Draconics prepared their archives for transmission, Alex worked with human, Centauri, vegan, and dozens of other species to prepare reception sites throughout the galaxy. The irony was not lost on him. A year ago, he had been a simple veterinarian working at an animal shelter. Now he was coordinating the largest information transfer in galactic history. 3 days before the planned transmission, hegemony fleets arrived at the archive world. Hundreds of warships dropped out of hyperspace and immediately began bombarding the planetary defenses. The final battle had begun. Alex watched from the command center as energy beams lit up the sky. The memory keepers had built impressive defenses, but they were scientists and teachers, not soldiers. The hegemony forces were professional warriors with superior weapons and training. "The shields are failing," reported Cole, who was monitoring the defensive systems. "We have maybe 6 hours before they break through." "Then we transmit early," Wisdom decided. "Signal all memory keepers. We begin the release in 1 hour." Alex's fingers flew over the communication controls, sending coded messages to memory keeper cells throughout the galaxy. Many of them were still in hiding, pretending to be ordinary members of their species. In 1 hour, they would reveal themselves and risk everything to preserve the knowledge they carried. The transmission itself was like nothing Alex had ever experienced. When the memory keepers began releasing their archives, the very air around them seemed to shimmer with energy. Thousands of years of accumulated knowledge flowed through space at the speed of light, reaching toward every inhabited world in the galaxy. Through his mental connection with the memory keepers, Alex experienced fragments of what they were sharing: scientific formulas that could clean polluted oceans, historical records that revealed the true causes of ancient conflicts, artistic techniques that could inspire peace between enemy species, medical knowledge that could cure diseases that had plagued civilizations for centuries. But the hegemony was not giving up. Even as the archives flowed across space, enemy ground forces landed on the planet's surface. Battle-hardened soldiers fought their way through the memory keeper defenses, heading straight for the transmission centers. "Keep transmitting," Wisdom commanded as explosions shook the building around them. "No matter what happens to us, the knowledge must reach its destinations." Alex stayed at his post, coordinating the final phases of the transmission even as enemy soldiers broke down the doors around them. Ember positioned himself between Alex and the approaching danger, his scales glowing with protective energy. The battle reached the command center just as the final archives completed their transmission. Hegemony soldiers poured into the room, weapons raised and ready to fire. For a moment, everything seemed lost. Then something unexpected happened. The soldiers stopped and lowered their weapons. Confusion spread across their faces as they looked around the room at the memory keepers and their allies. "Sir," one of the soldiers spoke into his radio, "we have a problem down here." The problem was that the archive transmission had reached everywhere, including the hegemony's own ships and bases. Soldiers who had been told they were fighting dangerous terrorists were now seeing the truth through the memory keepers' historical records. They learned about the real causes of the wars they had fought. They discovered that the species they had been taught to fear were actually trying to help the galaxy. Most importantly, they learned that the hegemony's leaders had been lying to them for years. Throughout the galaxy, the same scene was playing out on thousands of worlds. Hegemony officers received messages from their own families, thanking them for the medical knowledge that had just saved their children's lives. Pilots found themselves reading about agricultural techniques that could end the famines on their home planets. Engineers discovered clean energy formulas that could solve their world's pollution problems. The rebellion spread faster than the hegemony could contain it. Entire fleets defected when their crews learned the truth. Planetary governments that had supported the hegemony suddenly found themselves facing populations who demanded access to the newly revealed knowledge. Within hours, the hegemony's iron grip on the galaxy began to crumble. Alex watched in amazement as former enemies worked together to process the flood of new information. Human doctors collaborated with Centauri healers to develop new treatments. Vegan engineers shared techniques with draconic architects to build better cities. Even former hegemony soldiers joined the effort, using their organizational skills to distribute the most urgently needed knowledge. "It is working," Ember said, his mental voice full of wonder. "The galaxy is remembering how to cooperate." But the transformation was not instant or easy. Many worlds struggled to understand the new knowledge. Some governments tried to restrict access to information that threatened their power. A few hegemony strongholds continued to resist, fighting bitter battles against their own populations. Alex found himself at the center of a new kind of work. Instead of running and hiding, he was helping to build something. Along with Ember and the other memory keepers, he established the Interspecies Memory Preservation Foundation. Their goal was to make sure that knowledge would never again be hoarded by the few at the expense of the many. The foundation set up learning centers on hundreds of worlds. They trained teachers from every species to share the memory keepers' knowledge with their own people. Most importantly, they created new ways for different species to communicate and understand each other. Alex became the Foundation's first human director, while Ember served as the chief memory keeper. Together, they traveled throughout the galaxy, helping species overcome the mistrust and fear that had divided them for so long. The work was not always easy. Old prejudices died hard, and there were still those who believed that some species were superior to others. But gradually, the galaxy began to change. Planets that had been enemies for centuries signed peace treaties. Trade routes that had been closed for decades reopened. Children from different species learned together in schools that taught the shared history of the galaxy. Years later, as Alex stood in the great library they had built on the former archive world, he marveled at how far they had come. The building was filled with beings from dozens of different species, all working together to preserve and share knowledge. Ember approached, his scales now showing the deep colors of a mature memory keeper. Around his neck, he wore a small device that allowed him to communicate directly with any species, human or alien. "Do you ever regret leaving your old life?" Ember asked through their mental connection. Alex thought about the question seriously. He remembered his quiet days at the sanctuary, treating sick animals and going home to his small apartment each night. It had been a simple life, safe and predictable. But then he looked around at the library, at the humans and aliens working side by side, at the children learning about species they had never seen before. He thought about the medical treatments that were saving lives across the galaxy, the clean energy that was healing damaged worlds, and the art and music that was bringing joy to billions of beings. "No," Alex said finally. "I do not regret it at all." Through their bond, Alex felt Ember's deep contentment. The dragon, who had once been the saddest creature in the shelter, was now a leader among his people, helping to guide the galaxy toward a better future, and the human who had refused to give up on a broken dragon had become something he never expected. A bridge between species, a guardian of knowledge, and proof that sometimes the most extraordinary changes begin with the simplest act of caring. The galaxy was not perfect. There were still conflicts and problems to solve. But for the first time in centuries, different species were working together to build something better. Knowledge flowed freely between worlds. Children grew up learning that diversity was strength, not weakness. And in the great library on the archive world, a human and a dragon continued their work, preserving the past and building the future, one shared memory at a time.